Let's finally wrap up 2025. Hi, I'm Alex. This is Pucks and Paperbacks, where I love to shout about queer and trans books. I know I am very late to posting my end of the year content. If you haven't seen, I tried to let you know as best as I could. I had a terrible end and start to the year. I had a loss in my family and then just a lot of things going on. As if I didn't have enough going on, I then ended up getting sick, so that put me a whole week behind on catching up on my content. So I hope this is still relevant. I hope people still like it. And so thank you for being here. In this video, I will be sharing my reading stats, some bookish superlatives that you sent in, and I want to share my favorites of the year, not bookish, just media, things like music, games, TV, etc. Then I am going to end out the video talking about content creation, my Patreon and bindery. I want to share some highlights of the year. Then I will share what my 2026 plans are. Without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with my stats. To get these statistics, I use Storygraph and I track my reading in a reading spreadsheet created by Allie from With Allie. I read 73 books. I could have finished, but like I said, my end of the year was terrible and I just could not even focus on reading. So I did end up reading 73 books and I'm happy about that. I read 13,447 pages, and for audiobook hours listened, that came to 248. I reread 6 books and I DNF'd 6 books. The first book I read was Lucy Uncensored by Mel and Tegan Hammond, and the last book I read was The Summer of Everything by Julian Winters. The shortest book I read was The Picture Book and Tango Makes Three. This was 32 pages. The longest book I read was The Middle Grade Glitch Girl by Rainey Oat. This was 448 pages. For audiobooks, the longest book I read was The Cartographers by Penn Shepherd. This was over 14 hours. The shortest audiobook I read has a caveat. This is Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly. The story behind this is I had the book on audiobook from Libro FM. However, the time that I read it, my power went out for 4 days. So I went to the library to charge up and I grabbed the physical copy and I read this book physically. So I ended up reading 2 hours and 30 minutes of the audiobook, which is why it is my shortest. That's what my reading spreadsheet told me. While I'm editing, I will tell you what my actual shortest audiobook was. I have to read from my computer for this next one. Storygraph told me the average length of books you read was 270 pages and it took you around 13 days to finish each book. I think that tells me everything I need to know about my reading in 2025, and I wonder what it's going to be like this year. I do tend to read shorter books, which is why my page count was pretty low this year. I will circle back to that in another segment when I just talk about my reading goals. That's why I'm saying this. I still think 13,000 pages is really good, but based on what goals I wanted to accomplish in 2025, that's why I'm saying it was pretty low. The authors I spent the most time with were TJ Alexander. I read 2 of their books, and the other 2 authors are from manga series that I've enjoyed. Now we get back into the numbers. My owned versus library books. I've been wanting to read more of my own TBR. This has been my goal for the last couple years, but in 2025, I created a new video series, TBR Tackle, that helped me actually read books off my physical TBR. I also prioritized adding physical books into my reading. I want to make sure that I am reading my physical books because I have so many of them. It was pretty close, but of course, library books still were my top. 39% of the books that I read in 2025 were from the library, but 34% were owned. For owned, I track if I own the physical book or audiobook. Of owned books read, that comes to 25 books, and I read 29 books from the library. I also like to share how much I've saved from my library. I think that's really important. For 2025, I saved $541.89. I was so shocked by that and really happy. I don't buy a lot of books. I use my library very frequently, as we can see, so that made me really happy. I will be doing a separate video where I share what I've acquired in 2025, if I read it, and how much I've spent. My most read months were March, May, June, September, and December. The top publishers I read from are Penguin, coming in at 22 books, and HarperCollins at 10. This doesn't really surprise me. Next, I'm going to share my top genres. This probably won't come as a surprise to anybody. Contemporary comes at 30 books, which is 41%. Romance is 17 at 23%. I read 4 memoirs, and for nonfiction, I read 9. So in addition to the memoirs, the total of fiction versus nonfiction, I read 12% nonfiction. If I'm explaining my preferred genres, I always say contemporary, romance, and memoirs. I love to read nonfiction, and I hope to read more of it in 2026. For format, I read 48 novels, 7 graphic novels, 5 novellas, 4 manga, and 4 picture books. For source, I read 16 audiobooks, 25 ebooks, 23 physical books, and 10 were a mixture of the physical and audiobook or the ebook and audiobook. I'm actually really surprised by ebooks. I always feel like I don't read them as much, but this tells me otherwise. For author status, 18 authors I read their debut. I don't count debut as debuting in the year, so like 2025 debut. If I read the author's debut, I count it. 49% of my reading were new to me authors. This also doesn't surprise me. I tend to read more newer authors than authors I've read before. However, I did read 18 authors that I've read before. For publication, I read 5 indie authors, 3 were self-published, and 63 of those books were traditional. I do want to read more self-published works, so if you have any recommendations, leave them in the comments. Next is acquired. I already shared my owned and library totals, but I also read 4 books from Libro.fm and 10 books were sent from publishers. Either they were the ebook, the audiobook, or physical. I'm happy about that because I feel like I don't prioritize new releases or review copies as much. I tried to do that at the beginning of the year and I had a whole video series and I ultimately failed. For demographics, I read 37 adult books, 27 YA books. If you know me, I read YA, so it's probably not a surprise to you, but for some reason, I thought that I read less YA, and that is completely false. I read 4 middle grade and 4 children's books. That total is probably wrong because I work with children's books, so I read a lot of them, but I track this as my own personal reading. I also like to track what publication year I've read. I do like to read new releases and I want to get better at that, but I love me some backlist titles. The pub year I read the most from was 2023 at 15 books. 2025 was 14 books. That's very good. 2024 was 11 and 2022 was 10. Next is cover color. I am very serious about this. It is one of my favorite stats. I have been saying all year in 2025, blue is out. I always get blue and I just didn't want that to happen. And I am so happy to come and tell you blue is not my top color. It is in the top 3, but it is not my top color. Pink is my top color at 13 books. Blue is at 11 and purple is at 9. If you track this, let me know what your top color was because I'm really curious. I'm so happy about this and I hope that it continues in 2026. I just want a new color. I don't want it to be blue all the time. That's boring. This year I also started to track locations. I specifically track state, city, or province. Because I read a lot of contemporary, this is not really surprising. 14 of those books were set in New York, 5 were set in PA, and 5 were set in California. My top countries aren't very surprising. I read 49 books that were set in the US, 4 set in the UK, and 3 were set in Canada. This is a stat that I would like to improve on. I want to read more outside of North America. I also track how diverse my reading was. I want to make sure I am diversifying my reading as much as I can, and I am happy to report 49% of the books I read were diverse. I track if I've read a BIPOC title, queer title, or disability rep. That was one of my goals for 2025, to read more books with disability rep, and I think I did pretty well. Of the books I read, 51 were queer. This was 69% of my reading. Nice. This probably isn't a shock to you because I share queer books here on my channel. It's what I do. Now I'm going to answer some of the bookish superlatives you sent in. I sent out a bindery post, Instagram post, and on my community tab here on YouTube for some bookish superlatives that I could add into this video. I really wanted to know what my audience wanted to know about my reading from 2025. Thank you so much if you submitted one. The answers were great. I picked 10 to answer, so let's get into it. Kathy said, a book that you would recommend broadly. I have 2 books here. Gender is Really Strange by Teddy G. Gauthier. This is a medical comic, and it is all about gender from culture, transness, queerness, and I really enjoyed it. There might be a specific audience for this, but I think that this is recommended reading for anybody. I would recommend this broadly. I think it's important for anybody to just know more information about gender. As a trans man who has been out for several years, this was really informative for me, so I would probably recommend it mainly to queer and trans people, but I also still think it is important for cis people to read as well. I'd also recommend the YA memoir, The Cat I Never Named by Amra Savic El Reyes. I think it's important for everybody to know history. This is about the Bosnian genocide in the early 90s. I believe it started in 1993 and ended in 1995. I just think it's important to read about history, and I liked the way that this was written because it talks about how the family find this cat who they believe is their protector and helping them through this horror. But we also have the perspective of Amra as a teenager and school ending, her classmates being murdered. It can be a hard read, but again, I think it is important to read about history. Kathy also sent in a book you'd recommend for a specific, very niche reason. First, I am going to recommend Disappoint Me by Nicola Dinan. This is not for everybody. I'm going to recommend this to trans people in their 30s. This talks all about being trans in your 30s. I liked how this talks about heteronormativity from the perspective of a trans person, especially a trans woman. This is only my experience, but I do tend to see that I don't resonate with heteronormativity when it comes to things like marriage and settling down. This had those messages. I also liked the social commentary about being a trans woman and being with a cis man. It just shows the audacity of cis men. They are not safe. It does not matter who you're with, they are not safe people. Trigger warning if you're going to read this because it does have a graphic scene of a hate crime. I'm also going to include Hijab Butch Blues by Lamia H. This is for people that like religious memoirs. If you liked We Have Always Been Here, then you should read this. It talks about queerness and transness from the perspective of a Muslim hijabi person. They pull excerpts from the Quran and dissect it, sharing how it connected to their queer and transness. Lior sent in a book that made you laugh out loud, and Beck sent in my weirdest book, and I have a book for both of these. The book I have chosen for these is Several People Are Typing by Calvin Kosuke. I read this for a vlog where I had to read the same number of pages as phone pickups, so as many times as I picked up my phone the day before, I had to read that amount of pages, and it was very fun. I ended up reading Several People Are Typing. It was hilarious. It made me laugh out loud. It is told in Slack messages about a guy who is trapped in Slack. His body is there, but his soul is in Slack. It's weird. I don't even know how to explain it, but I really enjoyed it. It was really good. Lior also sent in Loved the Ending. This was pretty tough because I feel like I don't remember many endings of books. A couple came to mind, including Costumes for Time Travelers by A.R. Capetta. This is a book that I wasn't sure about. I did vlog it for TBR Tackle, and I really wasn't sure about it until I took some time to reflect, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely one of my best books of the year. It is a time-traveling YA romance following 2 trans characters, and they are in this fantasy world called Pocket. It is where time travelers first meet before they go to their when. We have Callisto and Fawkes. Fawkes is a time traveler. He has been doing it his whole life. Callisto, on the other hand, will never do it. They're content making costumes in their grandmother's costume shop. Fawkes comes to Pocket and tells Callisto they've met before, and basically the whole book is them trying to defeat the Time Wardens. The ending was really action-packed and I enjoyed it. I also want to put Forget Me Not by Alison Derrick here. I read this book in one day. It was so good, and the ending was even better. Now, these are two books that I can actually vividly remember the ending, and so that's why they're here. Lior also sent in Best Horrible Character. This goes to Adam from Deck the Holes. He's a former mobster, and in this book, he accidentally knocks out a store employee. He flees the scene, and he tries to steal a boat. But he's unsuccessful because the owner of the boat is sleeping with a head cold. Oh my god, this was such a great book. I vlogged this for the Queer Lit Readathon, so I'll link that up above. Beck sent in a book that you want to see as a TV or movie adaptation. I did pick a couple books for this, but I wish that I could remember which one. I feel like there's a specific book that I wanted to see adapted after I read it, and I just feel like I audibly said that. It could be The Prospects, but I have that for a couple other superlatives, so I will wait. The two that I did pick are Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly, which I think actually might be getting adapted, or Thirsty by Jazz Hammonds. If you've read this, you'll know we get the main character's inner thoughts. She is experiencing alcoholism and depression, a lot of mental health. I just think this would be such a good movie, especially because there's a secret society and we have a lot of drama. Honestly, this could be a really good TV series. Okay, the next one is probably my favorite, sent in by Emily, Gayest. What was my gayest book? You would think that this would be easy since I read a lot of queer books, but it was kind of difficult. However, I did pick a couple. A Gentleman's Gentleman fits the bill. This is very gay. It is a T for T romance set in Regency England between a lord and his valet. So good. There's another book coming this year from TJ Alexander that is set in Regency England again. I'll put it up on the screen. I also shared it in my 2026 releases video. That'll be up above, but I really enjoyed this and it was super gay. I'll also recommend another TJ Alexander, which was Second Chances in Northport Stephen. This was very gay. Reese sent in Unexpected Favorite Character. I have to go with Luis from The Prospects. Going into this book, I thought that Gene would be my favorite character because he's the protagonist, he's trans. However, I related way more to Luis because of his anxiety. I was really glad to see anxiety rep in a sports romance between men. It's very important to talk about men's mental health, but anxiety is something that I just don't see as much, so I really appreciated that. I just related to Luis so much. I also read this for that phone video. I just gushed about Luis the whole time. And the last superlative comes from @TheCozyBanshee, a book you can't wait to recommend to friends. I have two books here. The In-Between Bookstore by Edward Underhill, highly recommend, especially to trans people in their 30s. This is a subtle time travel book about a trans man approaching 30 who goes back to his hometown after he has problems with his job, and he realizes he judged his small town too much. He is able to reconnect with people from his past, and when he goes into the bookstore that he worked at in high school, his younger self is there. This was Edward Underhill's debut adult book. He crushed it. This book talks about what you would say to your younger self if you had a chance. This was just so thought-provoking to me, and I really enjoyed it. I think everybody else would as well. So I recommend this to all of my friends and to anybody watching this. I'd also recommend Horse Barbie by Gina Rochero. This was one of my favorite memoirs of the year. It is from the perspective of a trans Filipino woman. Gina is such an underlooked person in history. She has done so much for the trans community, especially in the Philippines. I was so surprised that I've never heard of her, and I just think that this is an underrated book and everybody needs to read it. Those are all of my superlatives. I moved closer to my computer so that I can share with you my reading challenge progress. I only completed one reading challenge this year, and that makes me very upset. It doesn't really matter, but I like to complete things, and I usually am very good with my reading challenges. I just fell off for the second half of the year. I feel like whenever October hits and hockey season comes back, I don't really read as much. It makes total sense. I was filming a video where I completed my reading challenges like I did last year. Then the end of the year was so terrible that I couldn't think about reading or even caring about my reading challenges. And in the grand scheme of things, it does not matter. In 2025, I participated in the Buzzword Reading Challenge. This year, it became 2 parts. It was a cover challenge and a title challenge. I completed 92%. I only had a couple prompts to finish. Weapon on the cover, I started the cozy mystery Bored to Death by C.J. Connors. I was also going to use Murder in the Dressing Room by Holly Stars. I started the audiobook from Libby and I absolutely hated it. As soon as I listened to like the first couple seconds, I immediately returned it. I do have the physical copy, so I want to read it sometime. I just don't think it's for me right now. However, I did finish the prompt thing with The Summer of Everything by Julian Winters. I actually started that in March, and then I think I just had to return it back to the library, and I didn't get a chance to finish it until December. I wasn't a huge fan of that, but I was happy I read it. Moving on to Read Queerly, one of my favorite reading challenges. It is up for 2026. I was so close to finishing this. I had 2 prompts left. Anthology, which I was reading This Arab is Queer. I enjoyed what I've read of it. And then I was going to use Murder in the Dressing Room for the drag space, but obviously I didn't finish it. I also ended that challenge with 92% finish. This was my last year doing Pop Sugar. I read 78%, which was my goal. I want to read at least 50% of the prompts. I'm not doing it in 2026 because I just think the prompts suck now, and I want to prioritize other challenges. The reading challenge I did complete is the Trans Reading Challenge created by Reese from @ReadWithReese. The 2026 one is up. I will be participating. I did a vlog where I read trans books for a week. It was during the Trans Rights Readathon, and I focused on this challenge. I'll have that video linked down below. So I completed it 100%. I read a lot of trans books. It is a really good way to incorporate more trans books into your yearly reading. Another challenge I participated in was the Disability Rep Challenge, and I said that I wanted to complete 40%, and I did. That's how I did on my reading challenges. When I get to the 2026 goals portion, I'll mention that a little bit more. For my reading goals, I don't have any arbitrary goals, but I do like to have fun. What I like about Storygraph is you can do different challenges. So I have been doing number of books as the year. So it was 25 books for 2025, which I did complete. For pages, I wanted to complete more than I did from the year before. I feel like it was at least 14,000 for 2024. So I was like, let's hit 15,000 because I don't really read big books. And I want to continue this goal in 2026. I want to read more big books and just get out of that mindset of reading shorter things. And I think that that will help me get to the goal of 15,000 pages. I read 13,447 pages. I was 1,580 pages short. I did complete my goal of hours listened. I think I hit 200 in 2024, so I wanted to complete 210 for 2025, and I surpassed that. I listened to 248 hours of audio. For 2026, my goal is to read 15,000 pages, 300 hours of audio, and 26 books. Now it's time for the content creation portion. I'm going to share some of my stats and just an overview of what I accomplished and what I did as a content creator. I am making a exclusive video for my paid members on Patreon and Bindry, where I will be doing a channel assessment. I did it last year, and I like to just film myself going over how my channel did, what videos I liked, and what I plan to do in 2026. So if you'd like to support the channel, Patreon and Bindery are the best way to do so. The links are down below. My YouTube goal for 2025 was to continue to be more consistent. I did that up until maybe like August. I tried to post twice a week. I did pretty well. I plan to do that in February. That's going to be my like starting point of the year, since January was freaking terrible. I want to post twice a week on YouTube because it will help me get to my monetization goal. This is what it looks like right now. I am so close. I'm like 300 hours away from being monetized. They changed it to 3,000 hours of watch time, which is a little bit easier. Honestly, the shorts have been helping me a lot. It's really surprising. So if you would like to just binge my videos, I would not be upset about that. I also started live streaming this year, which was really fun because I've had immense anxiety about live streaming. Now I feel so content with it. I'm going to be coming back in February. I prioritized my Patreon and I was very consistent. I'm so happy with myself. I put out a newsletter every single week except the week that I didn't have power. I also created exclusive content. Of the exclusive videos, I made 26. This was spoiler reading vlogs, exclusive content. I did a video where I ranked my 2014 reads. I did a video where I reacted to the trailer of I Wish You All the Best, the movie. I did an Am I the Asshole, which was really fun. I also did some live streams. That is all going to stay. I had so much fun on Patreon. Thank you so much to everybody that supported me this year. You are the best. Like, I appreciate you so much. Going into more of the statistics, 36% of my content were vlogs and 78% were sit down. This is either like wrap-ups, book recommendations, anything that is not a vlog. I also excluded some of my videos where I think they're more of like a social experiment. So my waking up at 5 a.m. video I didn't include because that is more of an experiment than a vlog. Now to my yearly overview, I want to share some of my accomplishments. In September, I was invited to be a Bindery tastemaker. I was so happy. I have been supporting Bindery since it started. I have an announcement, so I'll link it down below. I'm not going to go into everything here. In that video, I explain everything about Bindery. I really hope to grow my Bindery more in 2025. I would love to be able to publish books like all of my friends are. I want to be them. They are doing the coolest thing. So if you could support me, the link is down below. You just need to become a free or paid member. It helps support me a lot. They're a startup who has been publishing under influencers. It is the coolest thing and some of the coolest books. I just did a book haul where I shared some of the books that they sent me for spring releases, so I'll link that down below as well. I started short form content after being a hater, and I actually like it. I could not believe when I crunched the numbers that I made so much content for short form. This was mainly my advent calendar series, but I've had a lot of fun making short form content. At first, I really hated it because it's kind of time consuming, but it's cool to just like sit down, make a little video that takes me 5 minutes, edit it, and post it. I also started posting to TikTok, and I just cannot get over how better it is than YouTube. For reach and engagement, oh my god, it's so good. However, I am filming this on the day that the deal went through for the US, where now the app for me is the US app. I don't really know what I'm gonna do about TikTok now because I share queer books and I have a feeling that my content's probably gonna be suppressed. So if you are coming from TikTok, please hit subscribe and support me here. I would really appreciate it. 78% of my content was short form. I made 59 shorts. That doesn't even include some of the things that I just post on TikTok and Instagram because the algorithms are different. I just can't even believe that I made 59. I made almost 60 short form videos. That is so wild to me. In 2025, Patreon funded a lot of my content. I am so grateful for everyone that supports me there and on Bindery. Your support means the world to me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I've been filming for a while, so I am going to pause here, and in the next clip, I will be talking about my favorites of the year.
The next day.
Hi, it's the next day and I am ready to share my favorites with you. It's right here on my computer and I did make an Instagram post if you want to see it visually. I am going to share some highlights of the year, music, games, TV. I actually have been sharing this with my patrons. Every week on Sundays they get a weekly newsletter. I will be changing it up a little bit, but the purpose of this newsletter is to share what I'm reading, what I'm currently filming, and what I expect to have on the channel and on my Patreon and Bindery for the week. It's a great way for you to just know what my schedule is. I am opening it up to free members. The newsletter will be free for the first half where I share my schedule for the week and what I'm reading. And then the second half will be for paid members. I'm going to be sharing an array of things that I'm enjoying instead of condensing it down to the REPORT method. I just felt it was a little harder for me to come up with things every single week. So you'll just be getting what I'm enjoying and playing and watching. That has actually helped me be able to add this portion into this video because I don't really document much about what media I'm watching because it's usually just hockey. But it has been fun to share with you what I'm enjoying and just have that log. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting with music, this is probably no surprise to anybody. My music taste is very different. I like alternative, rock, and pop. I also like to stick to the bands that I've been enjoying for a very long time, which includes 5 Seconds of Summer. This year, they announced their new album. It was 5 Sauce 6 called Everyone's Star. It's phenomenal. Probably one of their best. Honestly, it's definitely up there in my top 5. I still really love Calm. I think that's a great one. And their 5th album was good as well, 5 Sauce 5. But this is just a new level. It is so good. Highly recommend if you haven't listened to it. Then 2 members of the band released some solo work. Every member of 5 Seconds of Summer so far has released solo work. I think it's so cool how they're able to do that and still be a very tight-knit band. Michael Clifford, their drummer, released Side Quest. I really enjoy this. I will say, now that it's been out for a while, there's only a couple songs that I listen to on repeat, but Callum Hood, the bassist, his is no repeats. I listen to all of the songs. I love it a lot. It's very emo. It's called Order, Chaos, Order. I love that they're all putting out solo work. I enjoy all of those albums. If you are a 5 Sauce fan and you haven't checked out their solo work, I highly recommend it, especially Ashton because he's the drummer. So why did I say Michael's the drummer when that's not true? Because he's the guitarist. Oh my god, that's embarrassing. Oh my god, wow, I can't believe I just did that. Anyway, Ashton, he's the drummer, but he also sings, and I think that is so impressive and cool. His albums are very good. Overall, really enjoyed these. Renee Rapp came out with Bite Me, which was so good. I also discovered Tate McRae this year, Gracie Abrams, and one of my favorite underrated bands, Fredo Disco. They released a song called Better Place that I had on repeat for many weeks. I discovered them when I was at a show for one of my favorite bands, Tiny Moving Parts, and I just thought they were so cool and I enjoy them. They're definitely not for everybody. One of my favorite bands is The Wonder Years. I have it all around my room. That tapestry is actually from them and it is a lyric from one of my favorite albums, No Closer to Heaven. It turned 10 this year, which is a very scary thought for me. I actually own the CD, so let me go and grab it. This is my 2015 copy. I resonate with this so much and I probably resonate with it a lot more now, but it was remastered for the 10th anniversary and I think it's so good. I loved being able to hear the way that they remastered it. Next, let's talk about games. You may know I love The Sims 4. However, the end of 2025 was not great for the game because EA was sold to Saudi Arabia and I do not like that decision at all. It's very complicated, but also just very terrible. So I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I just feel like I don't want to play The Sims anymore. I am doing a legacy challenge created by Little Simsy called the Very Veggie Legacy Challenge, and I think once that's finished, I'll probably not play as much Sims. It just doesn't feel right to play anymore. However, I have been playing on my Switch a lot, so a couple games that I played on my Switch are Good Pizza, Great Pizza, I enjoy that game, and Animal Crossing. I started Animal Crossing up, I think in like September, and then we got an announcement that a update was coming January 15th. Here in 2026, I have been playing that so much. It's so much fun. I do want to make a video about it, just a bookish video. If you watched my content in 2020, I made a video where I gave my villagers book recommendations, so I'm gonna do that again. I just have to compile all of the book recs. In 2026, I will be continuing to play Animal Crossing. Back in the summer, my favorite childhood game, Backyard Baseball, came to Switch. I bought that so quickly. Unfortunately, the Backyard Hockey is only on Steam, and I have a Mac, so it's not as compatible. It's just too much storage for me to use on my Mac, but I am obsessed. I'm so happy. That healed me so much. I sat at my computer as a kid playing non-stop the basketball and the baseball. I don't remember playing the hockey. I probably did, but honestly, I didn't become a hockey fan until I was in high school. I'm so glad that it's back, but honestly, it's hard. It's very hard. I definitely need to get back to playing that game. I also played a lot of iPad games, including Zen Color, which is just coloring. And I have a game that I used to play on my computer back in the day, and this is Burger Shop. I played Burger Shop 2. Basically, you're just like putting orders together. It probably isn't a surprise, but I do love like simulation and food type games, especially when you're making a restaurant. Honestly, if you were like a computer game kid, I was obsessed with that diner game. I can't remember what it's called right now. I'll put it on the screen, but it's so fun. I also played Good Sorting. Honestly, I hated the ads in this game. It was so hard to play, but it was fun. Basically, it's a matching game and you're just like sorting. You're sorting shelves and there's certain items that you have to match to be able to eliminate them, and you have to just clear the shelves. I hated the ads. I just gave up on this game, even though I was addicted to it for a while. I just couldn't get over the ads. It was so annoying. Especially because one of the levels you can't get by without ads, and I just gave up. Also started playing A Little to the Left, and I believe this was a recommendation from Reagan from Peru's Project. I like this. It is more of like a brain teaser game because it's puzzles, and it's a little difficult, but I do like to play challenging games. I think that's very important in today's society where everything is very quick and it's easy to figure out how to solve things. So I recommend that if you're looking for any puzzle games. For TV and movies, I only watched one movie that I can recall. I am gonna try and get better at that in 2026. I only watched Wicked for Good, and I thought it was so good. Honestly, I think it was better than part 1. It also made me want to go and watch the Broadway production because I've never seen it before. As for TV, I am not a big TV watcher because I like hockey and I watch a lot of YouTube. So here are some of the things that I watched this year. Sex Lives of College Girls, I was obsessed with, and then it got canceled, and that makes me very mad. Abbott Elementary, I watch it every week. It's my favorite. I also watched My Life with the Walter Boys. I had a deep hyperfixation on this show, and it's a reason why I don't like to watch shows because I get so hyperfixated. I lose track of sleep, eating, going to the bathroom, and I would not wish that on anybody. I hate it so much. That's why I don't watch hyped things, and I just know I'm gonna get obsessed, so I try to avoid that situation happening. I didn't watch the last 2 episodes of season 2 because I just was so done with this show. It's addicting to watch, but it's terrible. I do not recommend it. They're always cheating, and I just think it's a terrible show. Like, I was crashing out so much. A lot of my friends got voice messages of me just being like, why is this happening? Why is this show so terrible? And why can't I stop watching it? This is an adaptation from a Wattpad book. I have read this book and I hated it, so that's why I never wanted to actually watch the show, because I was like, I remember hating this. I don't know what happened, but I just started watching it one day and then I was sucked in for a whole weekend. I finished this show in a weekend. I know I didn't technically finish it because there's 2 episodes left, but it just consumed my life and I hated every moment of it. Because I'm always late to the bandwagon, because I don't want to be obsessed with things, so I avoid them. I finally watched the last season of Heartstopper and I loved it so much. I'm excited for the movie. As for reality TV, I watched the most recent seasons of The Voice. I'm so happy that Niall Horan is a judge. I love him. I am a big One Direction fan and Niall stan. I have been since 2013, and I am just so glad that he's been a judge and he has crushed it. I also like to watch Great Food Truck Race. I mentioned that in my video that I made this year where I read books based on my favorite TV shows. So if you're interested in more of my TV show habits and what I like, I'll link it up above. I loved doing that video. It took me a lot of time, so I would appreciate any support on it. And I watched the Kids Baking Championship. I watch it every year. I also like to watch comfort shows. It helps me to just have something on while I'm doing tasks. And that was The Middle. It has not aged well at all. I don't recommend to rewatch it, but I just like to have it on in the background. This brings us to my 2026 changes. My plan is to continue my series, which is Trope Taste Test. I will be doing one in February. TBR Tackle, which I'll also be doing in February. My main content, like vlogs and stuff, are going to start back up in February. That's my starting point for the year, just to get myself back into things. I'm excited to start making vlogs again. I am going to stop at the quarterly stats videos. They are just too much to make, and I feel like I just mess up the stats every single time, and I don't want to do it anymore. I am going to continue doing monthly wrap-ups though. I'm also going to continue to prioritize disabled authors. I'm going to read more disabled work. I just feel like I don't read enough of it. Even though in 2025 I read 40%, I would like to at least hit 50% this year. And I'm going to continue to read my owned TBR. I actually just got a book scanner for Christmas, and I'm so happy because I want to be able to catalog all of my books, and I never have a good way to do it. I have made so many spreadsheets, it just doesn't work, and I think it's going to be easier for me to be able to scan everything. Then for my Patreon and Bindery changes, I don't have too many changes. Everything stays the same except the changes that I've mentioned, and I have some other things I'll mention here. First is my book club. I announced it a couple months ago. I'll have the link down below. This is my themed book club. It's in Discord. I have a thread. I'm going to share some discussion questions. I am very excited for this. And again, just to get back into reading. I'm also going to try to add more for free members. I have a lot of free members and I appreciate your support as well. In 2025, I offered spoiler reading vlogs for books that I've picked out, and I enjoy doing that. This time around, I am going to change it up and just do some weekly vlogs. This might not be reading. I think it's just going to be catching up on my life, sharing you like snippets of my life as a freelancer, as a booktuber, and just what I have going on. I'm going to be offering recommendations through Bindery. There is a recommendation feature now where you can just get a rec, and I'll be doing monthly videos where I answer your recommendations and a roundup post on Bindery. This will be for free and paid members. However, I will prioritize the paid. I started sending out thank you letters and birthday cards, but I am going to be stopping that just because it is difficult, especially as things have changed in the US, and so some things weren't getting to people in Canada and across the world, so unfortunately I'm going to be stopping that. And for free and paid members, you'll be getting monthly bookish sprints. If you are a part of my top 2 tiers, the Paperback Pal and the Bookish Bundle, you'll still be getting a monthly live stream or sit down video every other month. And that concludes my 2025 year in review. Thank you so much for supporting me in 2025. I can't wait for 2026 just to see what we have in store. All of the links are down below. If you'd like to support me further, the Patreon and Bindery is the best way to do so. Thank you to my top members. You're the best. If you'd like to watch more, I'll link my most recent video here and you can subscribe there. Bye.